It's February, which means it's Black History Month, unless you're in the UK, and then I think it's in October or something. And because it's Black History Month and because Hall of Famers from HBCUs were honoured at this year's Super Bowl, I thought it'd be cool to look at a team made up of current players from HBCUs. History lesson time. Historically, black colleges and universities are institutions of higher education in the United States that were established before 1964 with the intention of primarily serving the African American community. Thanks, Wikipedia. HBCUs were vital in allowing black Americans to attend college, and now there were universities that didn't enforce segregation, but in many states that was still the case up until 1964 when the Civil Rights Act ended all state and local laws requiring segregation. There were places like Syracuse who were somewhat ahead of their time, and that's where Jim Brown played in the 1950s, but it's not a HBCU and it doesn't count. With that being said, and the historical significance of HBCUs in mind, it's a shame that the schools are underrepresented in the NFL. There are 28 Pro Football Hall of Famers from HBCUs. That's 107 institutions represented by 28 people. Now, some of those schools are community colleges, medical or law schools, but the point stands, that's an awful lot of schools represented by 28 people. 25 people represent the top 2 schools in the Hall of Fame. Notre Dame has 13 enshrinees and USC has 12. The reason for this is pretty simple though. Most HBCUs are Division 2 or 3 colleges, and those schools that are in Division 1 are in the FCS. There isn't a single HBCU in the FBS. In the 60s and 70s, Grambling State was a powerhouse. In that period, they sent more players to the NFL than Alabama, LSU, and Syracuse at 63. Just shy of Michigan's 70 and Ohio State's 77. The true kingpin of the period, however, was USC, who sent 131 players to the NFL, way ahead of Notre Dame, who only sent 91. Now, Grambling State, of course, isn't the only noteworthy HBCU, but it is perhaps the most noteworthy. However, Morgan State, which has only ever sent 41 players to the NFL, has 4 Hall of Famers, as many as Grambling State, and more than Oklahoma, LSU, Texas, Georgia, Michigan State, and Stanford. So enough of the history lesson, let's finally build this team. So there is one thing to mention for this team before I build it, and that is that unfortunately it is not a complete team. We are missing guards, and maybe not so surprisingly a quarterback, although we wouldn't be missing a quarterback if Doug Williams had a legend card. Consider it, Madden. So at left tackle we have Terron Armstead from Arkansas Pine Bluff, and at center Demetrius Rainey from Tennessee State, and at right tackle finishing the line Michael Ola from Hampton. Our first tight end is Tamarick Hemingway out of South Carolina State. And at tight end we have Larry Donnell, one of only 2 players in the NFL from Grambling State, and also the only player available on Ultimate Team from Grambling State. As we would move down to wide receiver if he was on the game, we'd then have Chester Rogers, but we don't, and our only wide receiver on the team, Eric Weems from Bethune-Cookman. At running back we have Isaiah Crowell from Alabama State, and that actually completes the offense. Moving on to the defense, where we actually have some more players and actually pretty much complete position groups for most positions, starting at free safety with Anthony Levine from Tennessee State, and ahead of him Raphael Bush from South Carolina State. At strong safety, Antoine Bethea from Howard, and now on to the linebackers and perhaps one of the biggest players on this team. At right outside linebacker, the now retired Robert Mathis from Alabama A&M. At middle linebacker, Joe Thomas from South Carolina State, and at left outside linebacker, Justin Durant from Hampton. Onto the defensive line. At right end, we're playing Chris Baker, moving him over from left end, and he's from Hampton. At defensive tackle, Rodney Gunter from Delaware State, and ahead of him, Javon Hargrave from South Carolina State. And finishing off the defensive line, Kendall Langford from Hampton. And now onto the cornerback, our final player actually on defense. We have All-Pro Ultimate Team of the Year Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, who went to Tennessee State. And now we don't finish it here, we have one more position, our punter Marquette King from Fort Valley State. And that finishes the team. And it's okay, we've got some good positions, but maybe this team would look just a little bit better if we sprinkled in a couple of legends. How about Jerry Rice from Mississippi Valley State? Or maybe Mel Blount from Southern University? Or even Willie Brown from Grambling State? And at left end we finish off with Michael Strahan from Texas Southern. And now all of a sudden we've got a real nice looking team there with the legends added. Of course we're still missing a couple. Now if Madden added a lot more legends, we'd have Doug Williams at quarterback, we could have Walter Payton, Sweetness himself, at running back from Jackson State. We'd have Jackie Slater at right tackle from Jackson State. Our tight end would be Shannon Sharp from Savannah State. And lining up across from Jerry Rice, the 3-time Super Bowl champion, will be John Stallworth, the 4-time Super Bowl champion from Alabama A&M. And that is it for the HBCU team. Like I said, unfortunately a bunch of missing positions and stuff. Those schools have struggled to compete with the big money of Division I football. But all I'm saying is if Madden hasn't already got a HBCU player legend release in store for this month, then they're pretty dumb. That is all for this episode. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll be starting a college conference mashup championship the next Wednesday, going on until we've found out who the ultimate winner is.